I want to welcome everyone today. We appreciate you signing up for and participating in our webinar today. I'm Michael Feeder. I'm a program director at the American Association for the Advancement of Science, or AAAS. I serve as co-PI for the S-STEM Resource Evaluation Center, or what we call the REC. Through the S-STEM REC, AAAS is happy to facilitate this opportunity for you to ask questions about the 2024 S-STEM solicitation and to have them answered by NSF Program Officers, and to ask questions as well to current PIs from minority serving institutions. We're thankful for our partnership with NSF through the grant that they are providing us and for their participation today. We have a few of our NSF colleagues on, including Thomas Kim and Michael Ferreira. They'll be providing answers to your question and a little bit of an overview of the solicitation. In addition, we have Tim Huber, Marisol Santabestian, and Emma Norman, who will be sharing their experiences in applying for an S-STEM grant from their institutions. Before we get to the heart of the conversation, though, today, I want to go over some housekeeping items. Please make sure to have your microphone muted so that we don't catch any background noise. Also, we are using the chat function solely for introductions, comments, and to share information through links. During the conversation today, we hope you'll be able to see the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. There you can add questions and see the answers as they are either typed in, or I will ask them verbally and we'll have them answered out loud. Once we start seeing questions come into the Q&A, which you can do at any time, you will also be able to upvote, and we'll select those questions that have the most votes to be answered first. If you have any technical difficulties during the day, please do reach out to our AAAS staff. We'll drop an email into the chat here for you so that you can connect with us. If you see, in addition, we want to make sure that we know who everyone is, so please take time to rename yourself and include your institution if possible. And there are closed captioning turned on, so please do add them to help with the event. And as we're moving forward, please know that we are recording and that the recording will be made available on the REC website with the slides. We really appreciate also your feedback on the webinar itself. We will once you close out the webinar today, you will receive a link to be able to respond to a short survey. If you're not able to do it right afterwards, we'll also send you an email follow-up with the link to the survey. We greatly appreciate you taking the time to complete that. As you all know, NSF is keenly interested in hearing how all events, including some of these webinars, are going. Again, I know a bunch of people have probably just joined, so I want to thank you all for joining. I'm Michael Feeder again. Please do use the Q&A at any time to add your questions that you'd like answered by our participants today. And feel free to introduce yourself via the chat. So I am thrilled to be facilitating this proposal preparation webinar today for the S-STEM program as part of our work through the S-STEM REC, which is made possible through funding from NSF. As you can see here, we are going to be covering a few things with you during the webinar. There'll be an overview of the solicitation itself, and then we'll hear from three colleagues who have successfully applied for the S-STEM applied for S-STEM awards in the past, all from minority serving institutions. Then we'll have time to hear from and ask questions of both the NSF program officers and our panelists. What I'd like to do here is first, let's get started with learning a bit more about what the REC is. And so what I like to do is be able to provide you with an overview of the goals of the REC. We actually launched the REC last year with funding awarded via an NSF grant to work in partnership with NSF to manage the first of its kind effort to support capacity building of S-STEM grantees and potential grantees. In addition, we're seeking to build the capacity of the scholars and to explore and increase the impacts of the full S-STEM portfolio. We've created an infrastructure to build community and coordinate work, as well as synthesize the findings across the over 600 funding S-STEM programs at different types of colleges and universities across the country. To do this, as you'll see on the next slide, we have a range of activities that we are managing within the REC. I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but I do want to highlight a few. Specifically, the REC provides resources, knowledge, and connections to support S-STEM program leadership. We also support professional development and career building opportunities for S-STEM scholars, primarily through an annual convening where we bring together over 1,000 S-STEM scholars. So if and when you are awarded an S-STEM grant, please do make sure to nominate your scholars to be part of our annual conference. We're also doing some community building and communication and coordination to build awareness while really digging deep into evidence about the S-STEM programs to create a synthesis of evidence about their impact. We welcome you to visit our website and to learn more about the S-STEM REC, and also to join our mailing list, which is also available on the website. It's not just AAAS who is contributing to the REC. The REC is, well, it's managed by AAAS in coordination with NSF. We couldn't reach our goals without the significant contributions of the full team of partners that comprise the REC. First, MN Associates, who leads the grantee and potential grantee evaluation capacity. Second, AIR, which leads the assessment of the impact of the S-STEM portfolio. Third, QEM, which informs our efforts to support and learn from a broad array of types of institutions. And finally, I'd like to thank our partners at CERC, at the University of Washington, who are evaluating the REC. And finally, before turning it over to NSF, I want to let you know about a set of complimentary webinars that our partners at MN Associates will host on the topic of research and evaluation. A few members of M&A are with us today. Kavita and Nina is also on as well. These webinars that they will be running will provide additional guidance for your proposal preparation work. They'll focus on generation of knowledge, research, evaluation plans, and should be very informative. You can find details about the webinars on the REC website, along with other resources such as FAQs on important topics such as generation knowledge, research, design, methodology, and budget. You'll see the links in the chat that you can click on to get more information. Please note that we are promoting engagement with M&A as a REC partner, and this doesn't indicate any endorsement as an evaluator by NSF. So with that, what I would like to do is turn it over to our NSF colleagues to discuss the 2024 S-STEM solicitation. Mike, or I believe you're going to talk us through this part.
Okay, first of all, welcome everyone. I also just want to call out, I see that our colleague Kaylin Owens is also joining us here in the webinar and may play a role in answering some of your questions and talking about the program. Many of the MSIs across the country are community colleges, and Kaylin is a community college faculty member in addition to being a PO and brings that wonderful intersectional expertise. So hi, Kaylin. I saw you there in the list. So we have made a few changes to the solicitation. They are relatively mild, right? So many of the things, if you are familiar with our prior solicitation, many of the elements of that solicitation are unchanged. So I'm just going to go through them very quickly, and then we'll be able to get to what should be a really interesting panel discussion, Q&A, and all of the other things. I'm sure you all have many questions that you want to get dropped into the chat. So first of all, some of you may recall that last year, track 1 and then the other program tracks had separate deadlines. That was a little bit of logistically confusing for proposers. We have gone back to our previous practice. There will be one deadline for all tracks of the program. The next deadline is March 11th. So that will be tracks 1, 2, 3, and collaborative planning grants. And for those of you who may not have noted that the new solicitation came out just not too long ago, if you had been looking, let's say, late last year, the deadline is pushed back a little bit to that March 11th date for tracks 2 and 3 specifically. So for track 2 proposals and projects, the maximum budget has been reduced to $2 million. And then we've done a few things to give you a little bit of extra space in the 15-page project description. So first, as you may have noted in the solicitation, we asked for a table of prospective scholars broken down by the degrees that you'd like to award scholarships to, or the larger disciplines that those degrees are clustered under, depending on how you present that. That table, instead of needing to be in the 15 pages, can instead be included as a supplementary document. Secondly, we asked for a logic model to be included as part of the way you frame the evaluation and just sort of give an overall picture of your proposed project. The logic model can now be moved into a separate supplementary document. You're very welcome to leave either of or both of these things in your 15 pages, but it's our hope that by being able to move them out, first of all, you can give us all the data we might need in that prospective scholar table, but also that could buy, depending on how complex those things are, a page and a half, 2 more pages to tell us a little bit more about all the excellent things you want to do in your proposal. One other thing, just to remind you, very recently, and I'm sure many of you have been keeping an eye on this since it sort of is a discussion across broader higher ed, there is a new version of the FAFSA that's been released for the 2024-2025 academic year. The rollout was a little bit slow, so sort of the beta phase, but things are starting to pick up speed. So we do want to say, just to remind folks, that there's going to be some differences as opposed to EFC, estimated family contribution, which used to be the measure that played a big part in determining unmet need for your prospective scholars. There's now the student aid index, which is somewhat different. It's similar in certain ways, but amongst other things, it can be negative. And so there's some other just interesting features. If you're tracking the changes to FAFSA, great. But as you may recall, we ask for you to have a strong partnership with your colleagues in financial aid and include a letter from them. The changes in FAFSA have put a lot on their shoulders, so be really nice to them. But when you reach out to have the conversation, I'm sure they can let you know the specific implications of this change for your proposal. And one of the places, by the way, where that change is going to impact is that prospective scholar table, because we ask for a measure of unmet need and that you're going to then use to determine your average scholarship amount. Those are the major changes. Again, required elements, the focus of the program, none of those things have changed. The award amounts for undergraduates and graduate students, everything else is the same, just those few changes. And those are outlined at the top of the solicitation. Let me see if I have the exact. Important information and revision notes is one of the first things you're going to see on the top of the document, and it'll tell you what those changes are. So with that, I think that covers that bit of ground, and we're ready to move forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the overview. And if folks do have any questions about those changes, please use the Q&A function in Zoom to upload your questions. And if you get them in soon, you might be the first one and get your question answered first. Before we do move to Q&A, I would like to kind of move to the panel portion of our event today. We are going to hear from current PIs, from MSIs. They'll share what they learned about the process of writing a successful S-STEM proposal. And today we'll be hearing from Tim Huber, Marisol Santavestan, Emma Norman. And so first, I would like to invite Dr. Huber to introduce their S-STEM project and lessons learned.
Thank you. So I'm a department chair for math at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, and currently have a track 2 S-STEM that followed up on a track 1 S-STEM. The current S-STEM focuses on master's students and employs a sort of a layered mentoring strategy, including separate mentor or not. Well, mentors that collaborate on research, on helping students navigate the program, on finding internships and career opportunities, and then there's peer mentoring components. But let me not talk too long so that we all get to introduce ourselves. Thank you.
Actually, Tim, you can provide the full overview of lessons learned, and then we'll turn to other colleagues. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, and please stop me if I go over my time. I prepared some things that some sort of pointers, and if you have questions about what I talk about, let me know. The student population at UTRGV is 90% Hispanic. And so really thinking about how to serve first generation students and the population that we have is important. So some of the things I'm going to say may be sort of obvious, but, such as start early, make sure you have plenty of time to brainstorm and consider ideas and to revise. I think we all understand that we want our application to stand out. We don't just want to meet the criteria, but we want to include aspects that are innovative, especially with respect to the broader impacts and intellectual merit. So really think about how you organize your ideas. Do this carefully so that your main goals are
So it looks like we may have lost Tim. And so what we'll do is we'll come
I'm
back.
sorry.
All right, no problem. We just lost you for about 10 seconds.
Okay, hopefully that doesn't happen again. So organization may mean using tables, formatting to highlight, maybe tie things together. Don't be repetitive, but you might want to revisit things throughout the proposal. Make sure you're using the elements of your proposal that you need to use, like reference how the facility statement will support your how the infrastructure you have will support the program. And here are some things that I think are really vital. Think holistically about your cohort of students. Design a program that goes beyond, say, traditional mentoring. I recommend including components for well-being, and make sure there's an intentional focus on supporting students. I think we should humanize students' experience. This means putting ourselves in students' shoes and really looking for a good understanding of their experience, their perspective, and the challenges that they face. Many of us work in high poverty areas, but I want to emphasize that we need to take an asset-based approach to in our writing. We can talk about all the challenges that our students face, but this shouldn't be the focus. We need to focus on talent and assets rather than the challenges or deficits. Reach out to community partners early and request letters. This takes time. Your program should really cultivate students' careers, and you'll have an advantage, I think, with an application that shows you actively connect students with internships and jobs. You're probably already looking at prior successful S-STEM program summaries on the NSF website, but reach out to the successful PIs. Many of them will share ideas with you, their proposal even. Some will even meet with you and give you more advice. Work closely with your external reviewer to help to develop models that assess the program. This should probably go through several revisions as you refine your idea, as your ideas, but really tie the success of students to every part of the assessment cycle. There's a couple of roadmaps that I've used in my proposals, and I can put these in the chat. These come from the National Academy's websites. One's a publication on mentoring, and the other is for serving students it focuses on minority serving institutions. So I just put those in the chat. And once you get your award, stay in touch with your program officer. Don't be afraid to ask for alterations that better suit your program. For instance, tuition costs can change in unexpected ways. And so you may not get your request approved, but you can ask for increases to cover tuition increases at your institution, or to shuffle the budget as needed. Okay, I hope I didn't take too long. Let me know if you have any questions.
Right, thank you so much, and I appreciate you sticking with us through the technical issues. I know they can be flustering. So next, we'd love to hear from Dr. S-STEM. I apologize if I didn't get that exactly right. We're thrilled to have you on to hear more about the work at North Carolina Pembroke.
Yep, thank you. You say that very well, actually. Excuse me. Yes, my name is Marisol Santisteban, and I work at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, which is one of the 17 constituents of the University of North Carolina. Our institution is primary undergrad, but we do have some masters in other areas, not in the sciences. We just have a master in science education. We are minority serving, although not considered officially that, because we don't have a big majority in any of the minorities, but we do serve approximately almost 60% of our students are minorities of some. So we do have a sensible percentage of Native American students of the Lambi tribe. So the school was created to as normal school for Indians, which were going to train the teachers of the little Native American kids many years ago, and now is a constituent of the North Carolina the school system. So we are not a tribal institution because the Lambi tribe is not recognized at the federal government, but we are a non-tribal Native American serving institution. So I'm originally from Spain. I'm not from this area, as many people notice when I speak. And I trained in Spain and then in France. This is where my PhD is from. And I came to the United States with a 3-year visa with hopes of going back and do research in my country. And that was 30 years ago. I'm at Pembroke, and I've been at Pembroke since 2007. So I'm a full professor now. So when the current program that we have is a track 2. I have that with 2 colleagues when we request this, when we put up our application. The requirement was that there were 3 people. There was the PI and 2 co-PIs, and one of them had to be from an administrative position, and another one had to be from either science education and some social researcher or something like that. I think that has been dropped into this new solicitation, that 3rd person. But so I have 2 co-PIs, and this is a track 2. And we basically built it with a lot of what we learned in a track 1 and knowing our student population. I really didn't know if the NSF was gonna like it or not, but it was really guided by what we have seen as needs and important things to get our students to become STEM professionals one day. And so the current program has 3 cohorts of students that are staggered. So we started in 2020 with the pandemic and all. And so that we enter a cohort 1. And then the next year we enter the cohort 2, and then the next year enter the cohort 3. So the cohort 1 is actually about to graduate this spring, and then the cohort 2 will exit, and the cohort 3. So that allows for a little bit of peer mentoring, and also to focus in a smaller number of students at a time when they come in, and provide them with the support systems that they need. So we actually noticed early on that we had students with very different levels of preparation when they came to us in the sciences, especially in the math. And one of the things that we provide to them before they come in is some kind of boot camp in math, and more recently in chemistry as well, as we saw that that was a big need to bring them up to a similar level. You know, doing research and reading papers, I read that math is the most important factor in the success of students in science. Actually, if they have a rigorous math curriculum when they come in, they are better suited or better prepared. So anyway, they have a math boot camp, a chemistry boot camp when they come in. Then they get mentors, and the mentoring has been essential, fundamental. I mean, it's one of the biggest pillars of this. They get one-on-one mentoring, and see these mentors are supposed to be advisors academically, but also life coaches. I mean, the scholars feeling, you know, at home and feeling that they belong to something is very important, and the mentors provide this, you know, support for them, you know, mentally and emotionally, and sometimes they become the parents away from home. So it is very important that they have those mentors. We actually ask them to meet with their mentors every week for at least 30 minutes, if possible. Like there is this constant follow of what's going on every time. And so community is really essential. So the mentors play a big role, but I mean, just last Friday, we were taking our students to a site visit. The site visit, I'll tell you in a moment, is also a flagship. And they were going to a bigger NC institution, the North Carolina State University. And they were going to visit the biotech program and all that. But one of the greatest things they get out of this is the trip itself. You know, we are 2 hours from any civilized big city. So the Research Triangle part is 2 hours away. Charlotte is 2 hours away. Wilmington is 2 hours away. We really live in a very rural area. The trip itself, it creates so much community. I mean, there was this collective euphoria in the van when we were coming back, where everyone was singing and loving each other. And I was like, I watch what they ate for dinner. I know they are okay, but see, I mean, they feel like they are supported, that they have a group. So when we double up with these site visits, we try to offer at least 3 a semester. The students can choose to go to 2 of them, and offer a variety of STEM careers to them, or that they get acquainted with STEM careers. Sometimes it's industry, sometimes it's academic settings. We are fortunate to have the Research Triangle Park.
And great, Dr. Devon, to see that kind of community building occurring and the utilization of your partners. We'll come back as questions come up to hear more about the work and the impact.
If you let me talk, I'll talk for 2 hours.
Oh, and I think we could listen forever too. It's really interesting work that you're doing, and kind of great ideas about how to make use of the assets that are close by and expose students to new experiences. Really part of the prime directive of the S-STEM program itself. So next we'll hear from Dr. Norman, who's coming to us from Northwest Indian College Foundation.
Great. Thank you so much for the organizers and for my colleagues, Marisol and Tim, for their really interesting comments and reflections on the S-STEM proposals and activities. So I've already learned quite a bit just from your few minutes. So I thank you for sharing that out. So just to situate myself within my place and work. So I'm Emma Norman. I work alongside and with the Coast Salish communities and the other tribes and First Nations that we serve. We have currently 130 different tribes and First Nations that we work with at Northwest Indian College, but we're located physically on Lummi Nation, which is geographically, to reference you, in between Vancouver, British Columbia, and Seattle, Washington on the coast. Right close to Bellingham, Washington. So it's a really beautiful place. You're always welcome to come. We always say it's where the mountains and the sea meet. It's a very, very special place. And so my work within the tribal college setting as a guest and an ally, I have been working here for 23 years. So in a lot of ways, I've grown up professionally here. Which is wonderful. So I've been able to grow in my job and my profession, working with youth and then faculty, and then now serving as department chair for almost 10 years in the Native Environmental Science program. Within that context, we've grown the institution from a 2-year serving institution to a 4-year degree granting institution, with the Native Environmental Science program being the first of those, becoming a 4-year degree granting institution. And now we've recently received a National Science Foundation grant to transition us into a master's degree granting institution. So we're always looking forward and ways to support our students, but also remembering that tribal colleges are chartered by the tribes that they work with. So in this case, it's Lummi Nation, which is a fishing culture, one of the largest fishing nations in the United States. And so it's really important for us, and the work that we do is to remember the intention of the school. We're very, very mission focused. Like I think my colleagues in the other minority serving institutions, the joys of the work that we do is student focused. Regardless of whether you're an administrator, a faculty, our maintenance, or the library, we're all looking, we always say we're pulling together in the same canoe, we're moving together as a team. And so that helps ground our work in a really good way. And so within the context of that, what we do is think, how can we provide support? I think we've heard the term wraparound services. How do we help our students meet the goals that they've set themselves out for? not prescribe them, what they want, but to help them in their journey. And so probably like everyone else in this Zoom room within this institution, financial resources, access to financial resources is a challenge for the majority of our students walking through this door. A lot of our students, not all of them, are kind of quote unquote non-traditional students, where if you look at kind of the demographics of those that we serve, majority are middle-aged women with children, so mothers or increasingly some that are coming in from high school onwards, but that's usually a second generation context where perhaps their parent had recently gone on to college. And so within this context, it's really, really important, for us, and I think for all of you, is to write your application with your community and mission in mind. Be true to who you are. Be true to what your strengths are and your vision and mission. Don't try to guess what the reviewers want to see, or what the National Science Foundation or AAAS what they want, what the hot trends are. Be true to yourself and to your school, because this institution, this National Science Foundation S-STEM program, is amazing because it's allowing you to basically boil down to support your students in their academic journey and whatever that looks like for you. And so one of the things that we have done is really think about data. AAAS is not involved in reviewing. Yeah, that's an important point. I was just really nodding to the organizations that are supporting students within that context. But one of the things that's really important is to think about some of the initiatives that have been going on at your school. So for example, we have like a strategic enrollment committee that are constantly looking at what are the things that are working to keep our students in school, and keeping that retention, quarter by quarter and year by year. And so that cohort group we've learned from, and then taken the things that they have, identified as, hey, this looks like it's working. We should really, put some energy into this. And so what we've done is then incorporate those tricks, are those suggestions into the proposal. And it's been amazing, because so now what we say is, in order for you to become an S-STEM scholar, we, for example, besides having your essays and, letters of recommendation and your financial need, we'll say, have to be declared in our Native Environmental Science program, because we find early enrollment is really, really important, because then we can guide them in terms of their four-year degree plan. People before were waiting till late to declare in their major, and then that usually adds on a year or two because they're just getting generally advised. The other thing that another thing that we added in for our review was, we need to make sure that they register early, not wait till the very, very end, but register early. So we say, in order for you to maintain your scholarship, for example, you need to register within that early open window. And so we've created this norm now through our scholars program over the years, where all of our students are wanting to register as soon as it opens up. They have a four-year degree plan, they're declared early. So the reason I bring that up is that you can also use this as a way to pivot and move your own work forward through the mechanism of your S-STEM scholars. And so that becomes this cycle of assessment. So I probably am up with my time, but I just wanted to, the one thing to take home is, be true to yourself, be true to your vision and mission, and your application will shine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that specific guidance and kind of the example of how the program's not only impacting the students, but impacting the institution and its operations as well. It's really great to hear. So we are going to now step into our question and answer part of the work today. Please do remember to add your questions into the Q&A function, not the chat, so we don't lose them. You'll be able to see questions that are answered in written format in that Q&A function, and most of them will be answering verbally. So please do take the time to see what questions are popping up and also upvote them as you wish. Our first question today is from, and again, I apologize to everyone whose name I get wrong, it is from Diana Della Rosit Pol. They ask, what kind of participation rate do you typically get with optional activities? And this is to any of our panelists, but I believe it was initially to Marisol. So if you want to jump in, Marisol.
Yeah, and actually you read my mind, Diana. This is actually a fine line that we all walk, right? You cannot mandate anything to the students to do, right? With this program, all the enrichment things, all the extracurriculars, and we all know that just giving them the money is not gonna make them STEM students and professionals later. But yes, we have to walk that fine line. How much can we, enforce without enforcing and all that? We get a decent level of participation. We have created a course, and the students in the program register for the course. And so as part of the course, they do some things. But even those site visits, we might get 60%, 70% participation. It really is pretty good for being things that, you cannot really enforce. So we have panels, we have these site visits, we actually have a spring retreat that is part of our community building activity. And we put that out in the interview at the beginning of the program. Well, before they come in, we interview the candidates that stand out. And we say, okay, how do you see the time and commitment for these activities meshing up with your expectations for college? And so they know upfront that there are going to be some requirements that we don't tell them that they're mandatory, but so I think it's fairly good. Okay, I mean, it also depends on the level of buy-in that the student has, right? We have noticed that when we have to insist a lot to students to actually apply to the program, like sometimes if that doesn't come from them, if they still have their aspirations are put in some other goal, like maybe becoming a medical doctor one day, even if they're a biology student, right? There, we don't have pre-meds. Sometimes if it's not something that they buy in, they're gonna have a harder time participating in those things, right? Research, attendance to conferences, etc.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to come from their own desire. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and Tim, Emma, has it been similar or different on your campuses?
Food helps, using like indirect costs and other things to encourage students, feed them, give them lunch, that increases participation.
Food.
Yeah,
Food also helps with faculty.
Yeah, food gathering. There is the magic of gathering around food crosses many cultures, and certainly, but it has been difficult, and we haven't really mentioned the pandemic and the shifts that has made. It had a huge shift in our institution where we went from a really robust college campus environment, where now with the operation of video conference hybrid, the ability to be able to zoom in from home, which really helps our population, especially if you have, children that you have to attend to, or, professional. But, how do we work with, the extras, the community building, and that? So we have done a lot of hybrid type of meetings, but really for us, even if we're meeting virtually like this, we think, okay, what's a really good time that we can do it, and not overwhelm them, but do it related to something that we know is going to be, just in time information. So it's not, and it has a purpose besides community building. So it's like information, at the right time and community building. And that seems to be helpful for our participation rate. Thank you.
That is great. And for NSF colleagues, I don't know if you all have any guidance at all on mandatory versus optional versus a mix of those types of services within grant proposals.
I was going to unmute to say something quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
We see a lot of projects, active projects, who say, well, students weren't coming to A or B, you know, but they are coming to C and D. And we say, well, did you ask them why or what they need or what they think they need, and try to merge together what your data is telling you, places where they need support versus where they're pretty astute. These are talented, these are bright students. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we always have the answers about what they need as faculty. So make sure you're always asking and listening to your scholars. If you think you've got a group that's going to be a little shy to say it to you in an open meeting, give them other ways to say it. Encourage your evaluator to ask them about it. Some projects come off the page and students are engaged and they're doing everything and they've gotten it exactly what the students want and need exactly right. Usually that's because before they wrote their proposal, they also asked that question and incorporated student feedback and data into their project design. So that's something that you as prospective PIs might be able to do out there in the next 6 weeks or so to try to just see where your students are, where your scholars are.
That's great guidance. And so I see we have another question here. I'm going to move to our next question from Heather McDonald of William and Mary. She asks specifically to Tim, you spoke about addressing the well-being of students. Can you give kind of an example or two of how your program provides that type of support?
Thanks. This is a great question, and it's not. I don't think there's one answer. When we were writing the proposal, we reached out and got collaborations with our counseling center and our rec center, and so we involve those people in. We have events that inform our cohort and others about these resources and about their importance, and we sort of reinforced that with mentors talk about their experiences in graduate school and how they navigated professional or personal challenges. They tell stories about themselves. I talk about how if I didn't go to the gym every day to deal with the stress of graduate school, I don't know if I would have made it. And but everyone has a different story, and I think telling those stories is important. Some other things that we do to sort of personalize, to humanize the program is we hold events that focus on socialization between students, faculty, teas, lunches. One component that I think is important in probably any community is involve members of the cohort's family, if possible, spouses, parents, maybe hold dinners. I know the funding doesn't pay for food, but talk to your department chairs and your dean as you're writing this proposal and say, hey, we'd like. Oh, I got to be careful because there are rules about contributing, but talk to individuals about how they can support including more of the community in the program, and write that into the proposal without doing cost sharing. That's what we have to avoid.
Great. And do others have examples of how they do that type of work? Emma, Marisol.
We did provide a couple of opportunities to students last year in particular because we were seeing a need in there that was increasing. And we actually had students that had really major issues with mental health. So we reached out to Sharon Milgren at the NIH. She runs this well-being series now. I ran into her at the American Society of Cell Biology meeting, and they have now a permanent session or several sessions during the meeting. And so I say, could you give us a little seminar yourself or some of your counselors? And so we did have something virtual for our students. And then they pointed us to their series. I'm gonna paste that in the chat. They have a well-being series. They have a YouTube channel with things like, working through anxiety, perfectionism, even suicide and prevention. And a lot of it is geared to biomedical student researchers, but I think some things apply to our students. So we have those available through our Canvas to our students. And then we also, I just happen to be in another network where in the summer we had a session at NC State where one of the facilitators did a great job on mental health and stuff. And so I reached out to her, and she provided a session for our students this past fall, I think it was. And she came in person because it's a couple of hours away. We pay her a little honoraria, and the students really liked that session. We stayed completely out of the room. Me and my co-PIs, we were not in the picture, so they were being themselves. So yeah, your counseling at your institution, or like in my case, I have come across this session that I thought it was really good, and it happened to be a sister university in the system, and I think it's the students value these opportunities to talk to someone else, and then learn about techniques of no copying. Actually, they don't call it copying, but yeah. And so those were two things we did last year. Yeah.
Thank you for those details. Emma, anything to add here?
No, I guess the only thing that I would add is to, synergize and streamline with your other departments. And so we have a really robust wellness program. And so what we do is instead of reinventing the wheel, we'll try to bring our students into some pre-existing events, and then tag on our own special things, either before or after that. And that's been really helpful, especially as we're trying to build community, both as a cohort, but also to breathe life into other existing programs. Thank you.
Yeah, and then might just say that word, right? Again, community. I mean, sometimes we always think about, we have to give them a workshop, but we have to support them. And their support system sometimes is their own friends and their mentors. I mean, keeping a close eye on anything that doesn't sound right or doesn't seem right. If it is, the people next to you notice that first. So I think that community is very important.
Thanks so much. And it's really good to have this contextualized information. I see we have plenty of space here for others to ask questions. And while we're waiting for that, one of the typical questions that we hear on these webinars is that one of the requirements for the proposals is that students are low income. The solicitation itself states that the definition of low income must follow the institutional guidelines for income thresholds that qualify a student as low income. For example, it's possible to look at the Department of Education Pell requirements as a standard, but does NSF want institutions to define low income themselves, or to use Pell eligibility as kind of the standard bar?
I think Mike can ask that. Because I actually was one that at one point I didn't realize that there was both things. Students had to be, they have to have demonstrated financial need by FAFSA standards, etc. But the law, and so Mike asked me in my first annual report, have you verified the low income status of your students? I said,
Yeah.
and how we define low income? And he said, well, check with your university. That's what he told me.
Mhm.
And he didn't really necessarily have to check, right, what is your definition, but he said, check with your institution and make sure that you check that box and with your institution. Right,
Yeah.
Mike?
I'm sure this happens a lot. Thomas, Michael.
So yeah, I'll chime in on this one. So yes, there are two expectations in terms of establishing eligibility in this vein. One is the unmet need, and that's where the FAFSA comes into play, and financial aid determines how much of the cost of attendance the student does not immediately have in hand vis-a-vis the unmet need. The other is a institutional definition of low income. Now, this is not to say that an institution can simply invent a definition. The institution can draw upon any number of existing standards at either the federal or the state level and plant their flag on one of those pre-established terms. And there's a number of them out there. You mentioned Pell, Michael. However, you could use Housing and Urban Development's Section 8 definition of low income. There is the SNAP assistance program through the Department of Agriculture that has a different established definitional norm. And so we are not prescribing to any of you what low income means because it's different depending upon where you are. The definition of low income from urban Seattle is going to be very different from the low income definition from the other side of Washington State. And so your institution needs to define it, but it should be aligned with some other precedent so that the lawyers don't lose their minds trying to figure out whether or not you've violated any principle in terms of establishing a specific definition.
And I'll say also that some of those measures, we do see projects that use those as the strict benchmark, as Tom was saying, but we also see things like at our institution, low income is defined as 1.25 times the Pell eligibility line or something like that. It's perfectly fine, but you have to justify it. What is it about the local context? Is it housing costs? Is it other things? That's why there's the suite of different measures that Tom just listed. One of them is probably very well suited for what is sort of driving affordability or what is causing someone to really fall into that low income bucket where they can't sort of make everything work out financially. You just need to find the one that works best. It's when it gets really convoluted or when it starts to get to the point where we say, if you came in and said, oh, well, actually, forget about 1.25, low income at our institution is 12 times the Pell eligibility. Well, we're going to push back and say, well, those folks are probably not going to be low income, right? So you just need to make sure that you base it on one of these established metrics. And if you're going to deviate at all or use something that's related to one of them, please justify it.
And just to put the cherry on top of that, the definition in the Pell statutes has changed with the revision to FAFSA. So please consult with your financial aid office as to how that might impact any prospective proposal you want to submit. Because since EFC, effective family contribution, no longer exists in the FAFSA space, Pell eligibility is now a function of the federal poverty guidelines that are published by the National Institutes of Health, which is a much easier number to comprehend than EFC. And therefore, the low income definition is no longer tied directly to FAFSA. You could actually calculate eligibility or definitional low income without doing a FAFSA calculation necessarily. So just make sure that you have that conversation and make sure that you have clear assurances from financial aid that you're on solid ground with regard to your definition of low income.
Fantastic. And thanks for the guidance and clarification and reminders to always be collaborating with financial aid and other relevant offices on your campus. One other question that typically comes up in these conversations is that, now that we've moved the evaluation plan to being a separate document, are there page limitations if one submits it as a supplement or other requirements that they should know about?
So just to be clear, the logic model that is associated with the evaluation plan can be moved to supplementary documents. And by and large, a logic model usually takes up about half a page to a page of space. It is a table that is about the size of an 8.5 by 11 page. That single page table for the evaluation logic model can now preside in supplementary documents. So that frees up an extra page of text for your project description if you so desire. Same goes for the table of scholar enrollment or demographic data. It's usually about half a page of space with all of the majors, the years of enrollment, all of the other attached information. So pulling that out from the project description gives you a little bit more space to describe your project in detail. In terms of their residing in supplemental documents, there's no length limit. However, you want to be really careful because as soon as you exceed the allowable document submissions to the supplementary document section, you're in violation of the solicitation and the PAPG, and your proposal can be returned without review. So this is not simply carte blanche to put a bunch of stuff into your proposal because it didn't fit into your research description.
That is great guidance. Right. And then, one of the, yes, please jump in.
Sorry, can I circle back to one of the conversation we had about student well-being just a minute ago? We had moved on to something else, but since we don't have questions in the chat, Marisol had said something that I think is very useful for our proposers out there, which is thinking of the role of a mentor as both an academic advisor and some form of a coach. And I think Emma and Tim spoke to aspects of that as well. So a little bit more than a year ago, the S-STEM program had some public listening sessions, not about S-STEM specifically, but to hear what the community had to tell us about what we need to do to support low-income students in STEM specifically, with or without S-STEM funding, all different types of things. But one of the things that jumps out, mental health, basic needs security, some of those things that fall under the umbrella of well-being were talked about a lot. We had hundreds of people come to these listening sessions. And I think one of the best pieces of advice, or one of the best things that came up, or that sort of came out of the discussions, is the role that mentors play in that, in sort of helping scholars navigate those really significant and in often cases debilitating challenges. And something that was critical was, we do not expect, the community did not expect your mentors to be experts in mental health, right? They're not counselors. They're not, they are specifically mental health, but other aspects as well. That's not necessarily, and probably almost never going to be their expertise. But what they did discuss is how important it is to make sure that your mentors are well prepared to help triage students in crisis, right? If your mentors really are only there to give out information about the major, and a student comes in and says, I just lost my house, I just lost my apartment, I don't know what to do. Or I haven't eaten, I've only been eating one meal a day for the last week. Or my depression has gotten so out of control. They don't have to have the answer on the spot. But if they know where to walk that student, or say, okay, we're going to make a phone call right now and we're going to help you get connected with what you need, that's critically important. So I think your mindset of how you support students really needs to be comprehensive. And that speaks a little bit to mentor preparation. Strong proposals not only tell us why their mentors are qualified to serve as mentors, but what are they going to do to support and prepare their mentors, because mentors do not spring from the head of Zeus fully clothed in armor, to steal an example from mythology. They need support too. Those conversations, a lot of you in the audience and a lot of us here on the panel have had those conversations with students, and they are hard. They are gut-wrenching. But we don't have the time to sit down and have our own minute to cry while a student is in crisis. Sometimes we cry with them. And even if we do that, we need to pretty quickly get them into the hands of people who can really help them. So I really want you to think about how you're going to prepare your team and your mentors to do that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to just add on to that. We've been doing some really great training on trauma-informed teaching, trauma-informed advising, and going from like the person who's checking you in, front desk people, all the way around. Not just to be able to be fully available, right, to be able to receive that, but also what are the things that shut people down immediately that you might not be aware of, that can be triggering, and kind of contribute to someone who's already in crisis. And that is not for some it's intuitive, but for others it really has to be learned, and that we call it critical self-reflection, and the importance for you as a mentor, and as a leader, to take the time to model empathy, to and especially in academia where everybody's so busy, and how do you maintain your work but also to be available when you really need to be for the important things. So thank you for that. And almost if there are parents in the room, what that looks like, of just being able to just pause on whatever you're doing and be fully present. And what does that look like? It can be life-changing for someone to give them your full attention. So thank you, Michael, for saying that. I think it's a really important point.
And just a little bit more, our mentors did ask for maybe having some kind of session for themselves on how to mentor students in crisis. And we actually provide that through our counseling department. So we have a person giving them a presentation and some pointers and some tips. And obviously what Mike was saying, she emphasized, it is very important to distinguish when this is something that you can deal with and you can get the student through, or it really needs to be referred and has to be, yeah. So the mentors actually asked for it at one point. It's like, okay, listen, there are situations where we don't know exactly, so can we get some guidance? Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. It's great to be able to focus in this way on student mental health and the different ways that S-STEM can support that sort of work. One other question I thought might be interesting for the panel to consider too, or who are some of the stakeholders, partners that you engaged with to develop a successful S-STEM proposal? And when did you begin to reach out to them? What would be the ideal amount of time you would have liked to given them to start having conversations?
I'm happy to go. I would say the earlier the better. Nobody likes a sneak up letter, or just in time letter. So, where are your existing partnerships? What's already working, or are there branches of those partnerships that you'd like to foster? So I would say earlier the better, and also making sure that it's meeting your partner's needs too. It's not your request on them, it's how are you serving collaboratively to have a synergistic relationship, a mutualistic relationship, so it doesn't feel extractive or a burden. So really that also looks like genuine, authentic partnerships that take time, multiple meetings, 100, what are they, cups of tea, so to speak. So yeah, I would say earlier the better. Thank you.
Tim, I say coming off youth there as well. Do you have anything to add?
We don't have really formal partnerships, but from the first funding period that we have on a track one, we learned that that was really, well, first of all, you have to know your student population and you have to know your goals. And for us, really, it was very important to get these students to think outside the role models that they knew. And our students have a very limited knowledge on information, say, not knowledge, on what kinds of things they could become with a STEM degree. Sometimes they were just as naive as, I like science, I'm gonna be a doctor. And a lot of times, this is all they knew, right? The people around there were their main role models, and what they've been told at home. When you're a good student and you're in science, you're gonna become a doctor or a nurse or a PA. If you are in the humanities, you're gonna be a lawyer. And very narrow-minded, and our students really needed to experience something outside that. They really needed information about, graduate school to them equated with some kind of professional school. They were, I mean, really naive in those areas. So for us, it was really important if we could reach out to, say, industries or schools that will take our students on summer programs, and we try to get some letters of support, but right around here, there is no much. This is very, very rural. This was cotton, tobacco territory. And, like I said, Research Triangle Park is 2 hours away. But we did establish at least some connections to some of the places that, we have ongoing site visits that we can get back to them. We have a new cohort, and then, learn about their summer programs, etc. Ideally, if you can connect, I mean, depending on what your program is about, right? For us, it was really important that the students experience things outside those areas and open their horizons. But depending on your needs, it will be really great that you get an ongoing collaboration, or, you establish some kind of internship program or something with companies. We did get a couple of letters from a couple of local companies, but the bigger players are far away for us. This is also very agriculture area, and we do have an agriculture degree now, and there is science in there. So you also have to know what your assets are and your opportunities, right? For us, there is an opportunity there. The students could have more hands-on experiences through that. It's in our backyard now. So yeah, know your student population. What is the goals? What is that you want to get to do? And yeah, get those collaborations established early is really critical. Yeah.
And I'll just add to that. We're in a similar geographic area. One of the things that we've done, or we did, is partner with other institutions like UT Dallas. Dallas is like an 8-hour drive for us, but or shorter plane trip. But there are a lot more employers, a lot more internship opportunities there. And so if you reach out to partners at institutions around you, just make sure you leave plenty of time in case you do need to extend that circle of collaborators to farther and farther until you get what you need. I think sometimes there are really good proposals that don't have these letters. So if you're not including letters, make sure that that you make that a part of your proposal.
I'm sorry, I keep talking, but when Tim was talking, it's something that popped into my mind, and I cannot get credit for that because these collaborations were established before we have our STEM program. But some institutions are really looking for students that are coming from underrepresented groups and low socioeconomic status, etc. Again, UNC Chapel Hill for us will be one case, where they have RUs and they really need the students, or they really would like to have students coming from. And sometimes these institutions save spots. I mean, Wake Forest University, for example, has a cancer research program in the summer where they include 2 students from 3 of the minority serving, I think is Elizabeth City and UNC Pembroke and some other institution in North Carolina. So that is kind of like, at least, you know, if the students are good enough, if you know, they're not going to admit someone with that doesn't get the bar, but they will save 2 spots for students from those institutions. So something like that, you know, with a few institutions will be really great. I mean, I cannot claim that they saved that for our Compass. Compass is the name of our program, but for UNCP students, and we always, of course, encourage our Compass students to be. Last summer we have one, for example, that went to Wake Forest, and then she was able to present at Abercrombie, and it's just it opens up so many doors after that. So having those is really great, and those institutions benefit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great to be able to point to those types of partnerships and intersections. And also we have about we're at about 2:15 right now. So I do want to check with our NSF colleagues if there are points that y'all want to make sure are made on the webinar or questions that haven't been asked that you think we should be asking. Just give you a chance to
I was just going to jump in quickly and respond to the question that was just discussed about partnerships. And I think all the panelists make great points about sort of the way that those can strengthen your program and really provide opportunities for your students. But in terms of the proposal, you know, there are partnerships that are represented in proposals that can kind of dampen enthusiasm, and you wouldn't want that to happen. And I think Emma mentioned this, really making sure that you represent an authentic partnership, whether it's with an institution that's willing to take your students, an industry partner, or another institution that you're kind of on at the same level with. You know, those partnerships can really strengthen a proposal, but it needs to be well developed and kind of align in all the different dimensions that you would expect, such as, you know, how it's represented in the project description, but then also in the budget, and how that all kind of comes together. So I would really think about spending some real estate on your proposal and developing that partnership and make it convincing through the letters in the budget as well.
Thomas?
So some of you might be out there thinking, there's no way I can put all of that together in the next 6 weeks. And if you're starting from a dead stop, I would say, no, there's no way you can put that together in 6 weeks. That would be an unfathomable lift. However, one thing that I would like to plant a seed about is we are always looking to diversify our population of reviewers. And if you are interested, maybe not applying this year, but applying in the following year, as a precursor to developing your proposal, there is no better professional development opportunity out there than to be a reviewer for an NSF review panel. With respect directly to S-STEM, you will get to see some really awesome proposals. You'll get to see some really what were they thinking proposals. And knowing the difference between those two states can be quite illuminating to someone that wants to write his or her own proposal. So I throw that out to you. Additionally, you will meet other reviewers, other faculty and investigators like yourselves, and they will also have their own stories to share about where their perspectives sit with regard to the S-STEM program, if you review for S-STEM. It is a fantastic opportunity. It is unbelievably helpful and informative to any of you who might be considering developing a proposal down the line. So I just want to encourage you to consider serving as a reviewer for the S-STEM program or for any of the programs here at NSF, specifically within the Division of Undergraduate Education, since that's where all of us NSFers work. You won't regret it. You'll learn a ton. And I think it would be extremely helpful in developing your own ideas if in fact you want to come in with an S-STEM proposal somewhere down the line.
I just want to,
You have
oh,
to
sorry.
figure out how to contact you and how to do that. Sorry, Emma. If people are thinking of that, they should contact you, right? Or Mike or.
All
Absolutely.
our contact information is on the solicitation, so.
And we'll be updating our reviewer seminar, our reviewer interest survey very shortly, and we'll work with the rec to push that out as well.
Sorry, Emma.
Oh, no problem. I just want to from somebody who walked through that door and reviewed, even we had already had a pre-existing S-STEM before, but I learned so much from other people's, one affirming and then also, oh, interesting, but curious. But one of the things that really, I think I learned the most was the importance of having your budget narrative underscore your objectives. And so I think sometimes budget just is thrown together, almost like a separate part, but it really needs, it's a delicate dance to articulate the move. It's an engine to move the work forward. And to be able, and that really came through when I was, reviewing and underscored that. So I just wanted to underscore the importance of that if you have time.
Appreciate that input. And are there other points that NSF wants to stress here? Mike, I see you coming off mute.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this across a lot of the projects that our panelists have. I think we'd be remiss without pointing out this is a webinar about developing successful competitive S-STEM proposals at MSIs. And I think that S in the middle is really important. So in addition to being a co-lead for S-STEM, I'm one of the 2 lead program officers for the NSF HSI program. We talk a lot about what serving means. Emma and Marisol both said, play to your strengths. Talk about what your strengths, what your assets are. The fact that you're an MSI is an asset. Your students are a huge asset. Every student story is different and not all minority students have the same story. So be careful about painting with too broad of a brush. But on average, you are going to have a lot of students in front of you that have lived life in a way that is different, in some cases much richer than students with other stories on their pathway to and through college. Play to that, use that. Do everything you can to understand them and think about what it means to serve them and what it means in terms of not just your project, but your institutional mission, as Emma pointed out, all of those things. MSIs are special places not because they have a certain percentage of people that fall in sort of into a certain bucket, or because they were formed under different circumstances, mandates, whatever. They're really special, again, because of the students, the minority students and non-minority students that you are serving through your mission. Think about what that means for your proposal and think about how to keep it in the center of your planning. And I think that would be a great start.
Thank you so much, Mike, for those words of wisdom. I think they really are good words to start to wrap us up today with. So unless I see any other questions coming into the Q&A, what I would like to do is thank NSF so much as partners and thank our panelists for taking the time to answer all of these thoughtful questions today and to provide the overview of their work. Please, as a reminder, do take time to complete the webinar survey and to give us feedback about the webinar afterwards. We greatly appreciate you doing so. As has been mentioned a few times on the webinar today, don't hesitate to reach out to the program officers at NSF for input and guidance. In addition, don't hesitate to reach out to us either through our website, by signing up for our listserv, through social media, through our upcoming evaluation webinars, or just through email to ask the rec for support, guidance, or to raise questions that we can potentially help with. We welcome you to always stay connected with us through our website and through the links that we have here. So thanks again to everyone. We look forward to engaging with you in future webinars and future events and through the resources that we're providing. Thanks to everyone and enjoy the rest of your afternoon if you're on the East Coast and mornings if y'all are elsewhere.